Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and bring onto stage, all the way from Prague, a global Forbes 30 under 30 lister and founder of Social Bakers, Mr. Jan Reza.
Hi. Can I get a handheld microphone, please, from the back? All right. Thank you. 1, 2. 1, 2. All right, great. So, hi, everyone. I'm Jan Reza, and as was said, I came all the way from Prague last night. So, which is the moment you come in and kind of you try and fall asleep, but the jet lag doesn't really allow you because you're trying to fall asleep at 3 a.m. in the morning and it's still 7 p.m. your body time. So I tried, but I promise I'll give it my best in terms of the energy. I founded Social Bakers, which is a social media analytics company, one of the biggest in the world, a few years ago, 10 years ago, actually. And it's a very interesting journey. So why am I the relevant person to talk to you about social media? So Social Bakers today, it monitors over 10 million profiles and scours billions of content pieces in social media. It kind of analyzes also $5 billion worth of Facebook ad spend. So I think putting us in a right position to sort of talk about this. My journey's been interesting from 2001 to 2008. I built a mobile games company. Then I built up Social Bakers and did a few investments, and Forbes were so nice to put me on the 30 under 30 list this year, 30 at 30, I guess. So I want to talk about social media today and about how it influenced TV, publishers, and everybody else. Very many people, and I've heard this in the previous talks, we talk about social and digital as still a sort of tier 2 thing. It's like, oh, second to TV. When you put in TV, which is, I like the data that was presented before, but one part that I really don't believe is that TV uplift part. While that might be true for a certain generation, if you look at a certain portion of millennials and Gen Z, that's just not physically possible. If you look at today's generation and the sort of social media generation, it's huge. You have 2 billion people monthly active on Facebook. You have 5 networks with almost or more than 1 billion monthly active users. This is mass media, and we're still not realizing this. Social media are mass media. Do you know what the largest TV station on the planet are? 2 largest TV stations in monthly active users are BBC, outside the Chinese ones, are BBC and ESPN, the sports TV in the US. Both around 80 to 100 million monthly active viewers. Daily, it's much worse. People visit these sites 80% sort of on a day-to-day basis. Messengers, even more so. And this is very important to realize. So, and while it might be inconvenient for many of the brands and publishers, that they're suddenly going through even more middlemen. And this is reflected by the advertising. In the world of the digital advertising, 60% of the advertising is Google and Facebook. This is Financial Times statistics from last week. And of course, there's one thing that publishers and news media would not like, which is, I have my content, and before people even get to click on it, Facebook starts serving them advertising. Do I get a cut of that advertising as the publisher of that content piece? No, I don't. Nothing. Only after you click on it do they come to your website and people start interacting it. Now, this might seem Facebook are the bad guys of this story, and to some of you, you might leave my talk with that perception. But I don't want you to think of social media or Facebook as an enemy to publishers, producers, content makers, and brands. I think at the end of the day, at the worst, it's a necessary evil that you have to work with. And essentially, Facebook, if we look at the data, it's a news platform. The top category for pages being served are by far news. It's many times bigger than the engagement of communities, of celebrities, of entertainment, and of brands. It's media content. This is very, very important. By the way, the scale is 500 million here, and those are weekly interactions. So 500 million weekly interactions to global news content, media content, videos that go online. This does not include views. There are even more views than this. Now, what's important about Facebook is that this is not a website that you come in and it's been edited by someone for you. It's completely optimized by an artificial intelligence algorithm. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because no one really knows how this works. So while for Google, I'm sure a lot of publishers and a lot of content producers have a search engine optimization guy in the company, do you have a newsfeed expert in your company? Does anyone here have a newsfeed expert in your company? Hands up. But not a newsfeed expert. This would be a profile of a data expert that really works with you, understands the data, and knows why your content appeared in the newsfeed. Now, I know of maybe 1 or 2 media companies that actually have such a level of people that can manage that. And I'll show the example of one of the companies that has it. And why is that? Because there are 2 billion newsfeeds on Facebook, 2 billion users, and 2 billion newsfeeds. And none look the same. All of them are absolutely unique. And this is why it's hard to understand. Why am I not there? And the newsfeed, it's tricky to understand even for the biggest experts out there. So I don't know if you know about this, but Facebook in 10 markets rolled out what's called the Explore feed. And while this might seem subtle, write it down, by the way, Google it later. You'll find even more data and more articles from different countries sort of complaining about this and working with it. It is an experiment from Facebook done in 10 about couple million people size markets. And what happened was it actually shows much less content from news media publishers and brands. By much less is some of these pages, this is an analysis of one of the markets and of like 60 of the biggest news pages in that market. The reach has dropped 60 to 70% down. Now, the good news for you is we don't know why this happened, but the traffic to the websites remained the same. This is a shocker, right? It should be a shocker. Why are less people being reached? We have a couple theories based on data that Facebook started serving the news to more relevant people, that they're actually the real clickers, and stopped serving it to people that just scroll past the content. That would be a smart thing to do, but we don't know that. And we have most of the data in the world. We're still analyzing. It's a very, very new case, and it's been around for 3 to 4 weeks. But did you know about that? Are you understanding the impact of such releases? Now, this is not the first, or definitely not the last time Facebook optimizes their newsfeed algorithm. This is their iteration, probably number 500. And they do bigger iterations roughly every 3 to 6 months, when you should start analyzing the impact. And once again, your in-house data experts and social media experts need to understand immediately what these things mean and what they, how to optimize the content more towards these changes. It was when Facebook changed algorithms around video, where they started serving more of their own embedded video as opposed to YouTube embedded video, for example. And it's really important to understand, to work through that and work with it. Now, Twitter. Who here's on Twitter? Hands up. Who here has tweeted in the last 6 hours? 5 people. 4 people. It's a really popular platform, and we're in the news media content industry. We should sort of all be that. Who's on Instagram? Everyone. And who's posted in the last couple days? Yeah, everyone. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about. Twitter, while I really love that platform and that product, colossally screwed. All right, if we look at actually the percentage of traffic coming from Twitter today, it's 1 or 2%, 2% in like the best markets. So Twitter as a traffic driver doesn't work. Well, it works for fake Russian news, elections, and these types of things, but just not for what we need it for to be. Where that traffic actually is on, for example, Instagram. Now, Instagram is probably the hardest thing for publishers. Last night, I looked through the data of the top 500 publishers on Facebook and Instagram. And what I was surprised about is actually that trend on Instagram is really picking up. And particularly magazines, content producers, people like Disney, TV companies are slowly starting to understand Instagram. But then there are new formats, sort of like the stories format. You see that on the top of Instagram. Now, there's really no understanding so far how media companies will use stories in the future. And here's where I encourage one obvious thing. Look at how the top influencers do it. Don't look at brands, don't look at pages, don't look at companies, don't even look at competing media companies in this case too much. The best people that use these Instagram stories are the sort of new online celebrities. And we'll get to that, and we'll get to the ones you could watch. But of course, stories originated with Snapchat. We have to mention Snapchat. While it's kind of dying worldwide and Instagram really took his cherry from them, one thing they really got nice is they built this discover content section. And a lot of media companies are building unique stories. And I think it should serve as a good inspiration. While Snapchat is kind of going down, and worldwide it's not really growing, but we should look at it as a good inspiration. And Facebook certainly did. So, and copy the whole thing. So, my biggest problem that I have when talking to companies, especially publishers, TV, content producers, is that social becomes like a checkbox. Are you doing social? Yep. We've got a Facebook page. All good. And often when I ask how you do it and when we get into the details, it's like, because management put it in my KPIs. No, they told me so. I have it in my KPIs, and it's done. Facebook page, done. Publishing on content, done. And that's the way social will get treated in your organization. Really will. And companies are failing to adapt. Now, I wanted to mention a lot of local companies here, but then I was worried that someone might come up on stage and handle it. But nonetheless, we look at global publishers, and I'm still hearing stories like, I got called by a major radio the other day and kind of diving into the data of some major presidential election. And they said, well, we got them all the data, and they're like, wow, this is great. So the most important thing is fans, right? And I froze, because this is the point, it's 2017, where for the last 4 or 5 years, we were saying fans don't matter anymore. It's a metric. But yet still, CEOs of companies and their egos look at this as, okay, how many fans do I have? How many fans does my competitor have? I want more. I don't care what you do in that social media thing, I want more fans than the other guy has. Please, start ignoring these obsessive fan count. The most important thing for a media company and a content company in social are views, reach, and shares. Shares are particularly important because they correlate directly with website traffic, with ROI in most cases, especially for publishers. The more shares you get, obviously, the more traffic you will have. Yet, when I look at some local media companies, I don't want to be mentioning, but look at Straits Times, for example, locally in Singapore. These guys, they don't focus on shares a lot. While they publish some good content, it's like, seems more of a random thing and like, we hit it, than actually programmatically looking at how to do and how to optimize for sharing. If you want to find content that is really optimized for sharing, you have to look at guys like BuzzFeed. You have to look at even like recipe companies. These are doing a great job, like Tasty, also a BuzzFeed site. Look at Tasty's Facebook page. It's one of the most epic pages. Even if you don't cook, it's just mouth-watering to watch it. It's like, yes, I'm hungry. Comments are important as well, but we'll get to the data of those in a bit. So, data. This is, to me as a data person, people keep ignoring this the most. And we have a couple profiles of people. It's like, no. We do data. I have data from Facebook Insights team. Yeah, this is I got data. I got data from Facebook Insights. I have data. I have a data team. Okay. No. The Excel data team is my favorite team. It's like I downloaded this data from all these sources, and now I'm analyzing this in Excel. I'll show you in a little bit why this is not possible whatsoever, yeah? But probably my favorite team, and actually I don't want to make fun of this team because it's actually pretty far off team. It's the SQL data team. It's like the geeks, the nerds that no one understands in the company. It's like, come to this SQL data team. It's like, select from database. And it's like, then they give you this answer. It's like one chart, again in Excel. It's like one chart. And you're like, what is this supposed to mean? Well, what you wanted. And what can you explain? No. So really what I find very, very difficult in this day and age is to find a data team that does it all. And this is very, very complicated to build. So the data team, to become like a data-driven company, has to own a lot of disciplines. So for starters, of course, it has to look at My Page's data and analytics like the Facebook Insights that you've seen. But it has to understand competitive data. It has to understand newsfeed analytics. Of course, in the media world, real-time analytics. Yeah, it has to start understanding what is AI measurement using artificial intelligence, trained neural networks. What does it mean for our company? And I'll show you examples of that in a bit. Do I start labeling and understanding what types of content my competitors are posting? Because if you're not doing that, your team is irrelevant in a social world. Benchmarking, how am I doing in comparison to the market? This is what helps you answer, okay, my page has gone down in reach. Have all other pages also gone down in reach? Which means, is there a newsfeed problem that we have or that the entire industry has? And of course, predictive, when do I post, what do I do? And creating a data team capable of processing, understanding, and taking this data into action. The best way I've seen it, for example, in news editorial teams, is when editors had kind of a right-hand data man, fairly senior, but very, very actionable. You know, not like the guy that gives the tasks away. The guy that really understands this data. He can also write an SQL query, but he can manage a team that can do an amazing job in the news feed, understanding the data and understanding the social landscape. What are the options what can you do now? Learning this. You can do nothing, obviously. You can keep doing the same thing that you have been doing, which, you know, insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over and expecting different results, obviously. Or you can start hacking. And I recommend the last bit, obviously, if that was not clear. I love when people on social media talks go like, content is king and social is its queen. I'm like, I've heard this so many times. Please, for the love of God, can someone kill that speaker? It's like, what does he mean? So I'll tell you what I actually mean by that. So I think there are amazing opportunities. Opportunities in innovating the content, its form mostly, and the way you deliver that story, and the channel in and how you deliver it. And there's great inspirational examples in how to do that. So for starters, looking through the data, I love the Business Insider example because they actually have an in-house newsfeed expert. And I'll show you where that sort of appears to. This is Business Insider's sort of growth, and while they had their ups and downs, they're still one of the largest media publications on Facebook. This is their Facebook data. Averaging, you know, a couple million interactions, kind of. This is on a weekly basis, right? So that's kind of a lot. But when you actually look at the amount of content they publish, this is their 72-hour period. This is their 72-hour period of content. And you know what they're doing? The gray are sort of the shitty content that they published. And they're fishing for the content that goes up, up, and up. And then they analyze through predictive analytics, okay, how am I doing? Will this content grow? And then they even go and repost some of that content, repurpose, repost. Now, reposting in and of itself is science. Please do not repost your successful content as is. Figure out how others have reposted successful content before you enter that strategy. And then they say, okay, this content is doing pretty well. Its prediction is pretty good. Let me go maybe even promote that a little bit. Now, obviously, you can't do this in Excel if you're monitoring 100 competitor pages. I'm just coming back to that Excel illustration. You are physically incapable of doing that. A, it's too many data points. B, there's no visualization to actually do it. You are visualizing thousands of pieces of content. So, and one part of it, and very controversial to most publishers, are instant articles on Facebook. Instant articles are a quickly loaded format which Facebook hosts, and this is what many media companies have a problem with. And you can put your own ad system in there, you can put your own measurement system in there, and you can put your own sponsored content in there, but you can also put Facebook's system in there. Now, we're going to get to Facebook and monetization a little bit later, but I would absolutely encourage everyone to do instant articles. Because this experience, as we've seen with, for example, native videos on Facebook, it will load faster. It will get prioritized in the newsfeed. It will get more engagement, which means there are countless many reasons to do them. This is the Facebook sort of official material, and they do get more shares. And even that, the 30% more shares should be relevant enough for you to justify the ROI. Look at it simply this way. If you put your article in instant articles, and you put Facebook advertising system in there, and I'll explain later why you shouldn't be scared about that. You put in your sponsored content as well. You can do both. You'll have 30%, you'll be giving 30% away to Facebook, likely, probably, hypothetically. Sorry, I don't know the exact terms. But you'll have 30% more shares. So 30% more traffic as well. So you're essentially giving away only the upside that format created for you. Now, actually, the previous panel talked about branded content and talked about it as, you know, it was sort of a bad thing for publishers to get into branded content. I don't necessarily see it that way. I actually think for publishers, brands are an amazing inspiration. Brands like Red Bull that have been already mentioned before, but countless others, are good examples of how storytelling can be done in the right way. So look into that. As publishers, also get inspired. Plus, if you actually understand who are the publishers, who are the brands with high affinity towards your publication, that data will help you actually sell more things. Now, Facebook video is a tricky one. If I, for example, look at celebrities that have done YouTube video, which was previously monetized, and Facebook, which for a long time wasn't monetized, brands and publishers have sort of been a little slower to adopt this, but then in the last sort of year and a half quickly understood, okay, everything, all these videos have to be hosted on Facebook. How do I have to do it? And actually the great inspiration here are some of the US shows, cable, people like HBO do it amazingly well. HBO puts pretty good content size up on their Facebook page. Maybe like if I'm looking at a 30, 40-minute show, they'll even put 10, 20 minutes up on there. They'll launch the monetization, which Facebook recently opened, and they're going to scale worldwide. And, you know, they're good with that. You don't have the full content, but you have a very, very high percentage of it. And I think this is where the future is, and optimizing towards that and understanding that. And every publication, every content producer has to understand what percentage of my content do I give away for, quote, free and monetize it through ads, and what percentage do I put behind a paid gateway, for example. And live video is a good way to, of course, promote events, promote news, and these things. I encourage everybody, try live video. Really, Facebook has been promoting this extremely heavily, so it means when you kind of use live video, they might end up promoting your page, your communities a lot more. And look at the examples of people that actually do it. Who knows this person? Hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have kids, right? Probably. So watch this. This is PewDiePie. This is the #1 celebrity on the internet. #1 celebrity. So this guy has 18 billion views historically, yeah? 18 billion views. 50+ million subscribers. Some of his videos on that day have bigger watch rate than most of the biggest TV stations have that day. And I'm thinking like all of them on the TV station would be watching at the same time. And trust me, his audience is all watching at the same time, the same day. If we look at actually campaigns this guy has done for the brands instantly sell out. It is hot product for a long period of time. He completely acknowledges that this is a paid ad, sponsored. He has a way of tagging and explaining to his audience why that is sponsored. And for example, brands come to me and say, Jan, how should we work with these guys? And I say, do you have money? They're like, yeah. Then don't come to this guy. Don't try and figure it out for him. If he likes your product, he'll figure out the better way than most of you guys can. Because you know creative agencies, is anyone from creative agencies here? Good. So creative agencies can't do this. They have no idea how to engage influencers. Now, there are specialized companies, MCNs, for example, that work with influencers, but they represent them, not you. So today, there's still a failing market for actual agencies that would represent you on the influencer side. There are a few good storytelling agency examples, but most of them won't get it half as right as these guys will on an afternoon coffee. If you say, I've got X for you, what can you do? They'll probably figure out the better way. And I encourage you work both with the big ones and with the smaller ones. An example here, one of my companies, Gamey, it's a mobile game social networks, works with influencers around Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. I have, by the way, a great list of those guys. But so what the results of some of these guys that have between 50 and 250,000 followers, it can create over time maybe 50, 100, 150,000 downloads for your app. And you don't want to know for how much money. It is silly. I don't understand why everyone's not putting their money with these influencers. So I encourage you to write this down. Watch 1 or 2 videos from PewDiePie. You will absolutely not get it. I'm 30 years old. I don't understand his videos. Yeah? And some of you might look a little older, just a little older. So while the content is not as good, look at the format, the story delivery, frequency, all of these things. Those matter. Those are extremely relevant to you. Don't look at the content. Look at how he does it. How he does it in the first few seconds to grab attention. How he converts at the end. How he talks about the products. This is the relevant piece. And this is the relevant intelligence. My favorite example that crosses into news media is Vox. Vox is a big media company, 1,000+ people in the US. They do amazing storytelling through data. They use always the data to bring up their stories. But instead of building a dull Facebook page that shares, some videos, they had Ezra Klein, who's the sort of editor-at-large, is like the right-hand person to the editor-in-chief, and he explains, narrates, and moderates all of their videos on their social communities. What that created is one of the fastest-growing media companies, stories in social media. They're as big as CNN. They actually got to Business Insider, a certain portion of Business Insider's size, if you look and compare the data. But their content, the bottom piece are shares. I know the yellows are too. The top one are the reactions. The bottom one are shares. It's some of the most shareable content out there. And when you're looking at content, we kind of have this funny metric defined in Social Bakers. We call it the love rate, coming back to the gentleman's remarks on comments. We look at the comments plus shares divided by the total amount of engagement. That's sort of a nice love rate to watch for your content. If that's very high and if it's higher for your competitors, you're probably doing a really good job on content. We might end up putting it in the product. And especially since the US president got elected, these satirical comedians became absolute rock stars. And I encourage, again, content, funny, yes, look at it, absolutely great. But look at the form of which they do it, Look at the way they technologically publish the content, how they limit to the paid gateway, because many of them, like John Oliver, he's an HBO paid gateway, so you have to have an HBO subscription to watch his full content. Yet look at what they do on their Facebook and YouTube channels. It's quite amazing. Vice is another example where everyone in the world on Facebook went, let's do short form content. Let's do 30 seconds. 60 seconds, 90 seconds. These guys said, screw it. We're going to do 2-hour news segments, very deep on one topic. And everybody was probably a few years ago were going like, this is crazy. Nobody's going to watch that in social media. The finish rates on some of their videos, the completion rates of viewerships are shocking. Yeah. Average completion rate, by the way, for a video in social media on Facebook to YouTube is between 10 to 40%. These companies will hover on the top end of it. I encourage you, while stats like that are not available for TV, they're available for every piece of content you publish, every video you publish on Facebook. You can understand exactly your view-through rate. So to conclude with some video tips that I don't think I need to repeat some of these video tips, but I will just in case. If you're publishing on video, absolutely try live video. If you're having a video without subtitles that are embedded either into the video or directly over as part of the video, you really shouldn't even bother producing that video at all. Subtitles are absolutely critical. And then bots. I want to talk about bots a little bit. And I don't mean the bots that create these fake news and that, you know, again, influence many elections and God knows who pays for them. I'm talking about the bots that are intended that when you write the CNN page on Facebook today, you get an answer back. I don't think media companies and producers and content producers quite appreciate what can actually be done. I don't know if you're aware, but if somebody writes your page, you can write them back. This is a pretty strong channel. So when I tested the very sophisticated CNN bot last night, I wrote them and they said, hi there, here's some content. And if you notice, here's like a Pope something. So I thought, hey, maybe I can zoom in on Pope news. So I wrote Pope. And they said again, hi there, thanks for chatting with CNN. Here are some of today's. Very clever bot. Wow. Wow, very clever. They can't do a full text search in their own RSS feed. Wow, it's one line of code. Literally one line of code. Very capable programmers, I'm sure, at CNN. Yeah. So when you're building a bot experience, try and find a bot expert that really understands what the hell they're working on. Again, measure these results. I believe this could be sort of your next Facebook page in social media. Remember, WeChat sort of has an unofficial API, but they will have a much more scaled API. Messenger already has this. Viber has a beautiful API and a store for the content, so you can actually put in your bot into their news store, into their discovery section. Most other platforms are getting it as well. Messenger will be actually scaling the section that recommends other bots. So the time to build one is now, and to launch one as soon as you possibly can. Launch it, iterate through the data, understand how it works, understand how much traffic it brings, and take it from there. And of course, as I mentioned, absolutely use data all the time with everything you do. And as I mentioned, get a newsfeed expert. This is George, probably your newsfeed experts. And as I mentioned, you have to have people like that truly understand the experience, and not just from a social media perspective. Being a social media expert doesn't mean, if you're interviewing one, that they have a very good Instagram. Yeah, if they post many selfies on Instagram, they're not necessarily going to be great. They have to understand data, they have to understand social, they have to understand channels. Hopefully they've done it before. And build out those teams, build out those capabilities. I know it's extremely, extremely hard. And use the right tools in order to help you do that. find 2, 3 of the best data companies, ones like tools like Social Bakers, but for example, we don't offer assistance, so find data companies that also offer a little bit more with some service. And to kind of conclude, I mean, it's a little bit scary, right? Media companies and content producers, TV producers, they're used to owning the whole process. They're used to owning the printing press, owning the print publication, owning the distribution. I couldn't find a better picture than a paper boy for distribution. They owning kind of the advertising, and you have the content. But in today's landscape, that part is gone. So the thing that remains is the content. So the tips that I hope you wrote down and that I hope you are going to take back is how to take these and connect it into the right channels, how to format it in the right way so that your audiences have a better reaction. And of course today you don't own the infrastructure, it's mostly cloud. You don't own your position in the App Store, that's Android and Apple's store. You don't own Facebook as a platform, and you definitely will not own the advertising capability, while some of you might think you still do. There certainly be opportunities for things like sponsored content and other things, but I don't believe that a majority of the money you will make in the future you'll be generating that yourselves. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that a journalist, a good journalist with an audience, can go fully independent and create their own publication? It might be the case. So what role does the publication have? Does the content producer have? And this is the important question you have to be asking yourself. And the first place you start with is become an expert in the things I just mentioned. Because if you don't, others will become those experts and they'll basically eat your lunch. And the question is, where's the money? Show me the money. And I want to talk about Facebook because people are afraid, okay, if we're giving the channel away, if we're giving also the distribution away, and if even they serve our content in these instant articles, and we really just kind of serving this content, we can't give away monetization, right? It's the last piece that we're holding on to, the strategic pillar. If you think you're better in building up custom audiences, algorithms, and ad buying platforms than Facebook, please let me know, I'll hire you right away. But nobody is better than Facebook. And in the future, that fee that Facebook takes will look like a small ticket compared to the results and returns that we have. And mark my words, in 12 to 24 months, most of the publishers out there, they'll still be screaming, oh, Facebook, this change and this problematic newsfeed change all the time, of course, because they're going to be relying on it. But most of them are going to be making money in that way. So, to conclude, stop ignoring data. That guy can have a seat at the table as soon as he backs his content and marketing ideas with data. Don't treat social as just one stupid checkbox. Don't put a KPI, have Facebook, in someone's KPI. Make sure that your decisions are data-driven and absolutely innovate these formats and these channels. This is the most important message of the day, and I hope I got to show you how. In most of the media folks I meet around the world, most people don't get to sort of understand and appreciate how important detail is when you publish in social media. Social media is about every micro detail. Did you publish the link? Is the content similar to the content you've published before? How frequently are you doing it? Are you publishing content how many minutes away from each other? All of this, it can be an opinion, but it actually is pretty deep science when you look at the data. And understanding that is absolutely critical. And putting in the right content. And this is not at all dismissing, and we haven't discussed the whole part of creativity, because that's not my job. I'm not good at that. Hopefully, you guys are good at that. So the creativity in content, that remains. I actually think it remains pretty much the same. You have to optimize how you build it for these channels. But if you look and get inspired by some of these celebrities, influencers, brands, people like PewDiePie, but look at the top 20 list of YouTubers. Look at the top 20 list of regional YouTubers. Make your teams understand that. Analyze them. Bring them in, the local ones. They'll come to your office. They'll happily do a speech, and you'll be surprised how cheap it is to do that. And they'll tell you everything, and your team will be absolutely enlightened. Call these guys now, tomorrow, and bring them to your offices. Have them talk about this. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jan Razab.
No question? All clear? Oh, there's one over. There's two. There's one in the back. Do we have a microphone? Oh, yep. Microphone is running to you. There we go.
Hi, my name is Jelda. I'm representing Dynamic Television. I loved your presentation.
Thank you.
What I noticed was, and this is nothing with the content really, but what you showed was you were showing mainly men as, or only men as a feed experts. I'm wondering why is that? Because do you really believe that women are not able to analyze these data?
How do you know George was a man? How do you know? In this day and age, was American might have been. Never mind. So I actually most of the analysts that we have at Social Bakers are women. So I think they're better at multitasking, just pragmatically speaking. So I will change that for my future presentations. Thank you for the suggestion. So please, next question in the front. Microphone is on its way. Here.
You know, on Facebook, my name's Anil Vanwari from India. On Facebook, you know, engagement needs to be there. We're right about that. And you're saying old content needn't be shared very easily, which has been shared a lot. So how often should a publisher look at putting up content on a daily basis? Is it 6 engagements, and how do you ensure that your audience comes back and it becomes appointment viewing for them?
So the frequency of posts is one of the most discussed topics, I guess, in social. And I guess copy the strategy. This is where some of these Business Insiders, BuzzFeeds, Tasty channels are doing the best job. Look at them on a regular basis, and they change their strategies fluidly a lot. If they're changing it, they have better newsfeed experts than probably you have today. So if you get inspired by what their frequency is, and it's not only about the frequency, it's the distance of the posts in the prime times of posting. So I would copy more that, and it's kind of like the general rule of thumb is, if your engagement for the last post is plateauing and dies off, if you look at it on a minute-to-minute basis, give it like 20 to 60 minutes and publish again, right? Now, Business Insider ignores that because they publish far, far more than that. And they're fishing. But it depends if nobody has as much content as these guys kind of produce. So I would suggest that strategy. So sort of as it picks up. Also reposting, but reposting is a very, very critical science. It cannot, like Business Insider, even just a few tips, like they rename the posts, they relink them, they change the main headlining image. They know it was successful, so they try and even make it even more successful. And they could repost a very, very successful piece of content 5 to 10 times in a course of a few weeks. You won't even notice it because obviously organic reach is not at the level of 80%, we wish. It's at the level of few percent. So if you repost in a certain way, certain times, people won't even notice.
Yeah, and how much of these are paid boosts?
We believe, based on, we have an algorithm that can understand that has a neural network, 90+% of media companies' posts are all organic these days. Very little are paid, and largely it's the sponsored ones that are paid, which means the publication gets paid by the sponsor anyway, to some extent.
Thank you.
Question over there.
Hi, Jensen. Thanks so much for your presentation. I just wonder, you mentioned, basically you emphasize the social, the media data. Have you do any the big data analysis on the social media data? What kind of, basically, what kind of strategy can be designed based on the social media data to help both the TV and the movie, promotion in the future?
I think there are actually a few companies that focus only on, for example, movies and social media, where they will take parts of your content and A/B test it in social media if it's doing well or not, and then you kind of start optimizing actual content itself or the advertising for this content. There are many strategies you can take, but what I recommend is building out start with a data team and an optimization team for social media. The data team are passive. They feed the teams, and the optimization team sits right by the editorials if it's not the editorial people themselves. So the social media team understands optimization and a little bit of data, but they have a dedicated data team as part that they can tap into at any time. Now this means headcount for sure, but I think essential headcount for the future. And this might mean 2-3 extra people. This might mean 10-20 extra people down the road.
Yeah, we're trying to basically develop a system, based on social media, part of the social media. Of course, use as data also. Use the artificial intelligence can, basically help the promoting, and also TV and the movie. Basically, kind of get more information. What is the social media data eventually turn into the, TV watcher on the movie goer? That kind of inside information.
That's perfect. And I think you start there by creating, licensing some of the software as a service tools. That's start number one. Then you build more in-house capabilities. Then while still using the tools, you leverage all of the power of the combination and build maybe your own neural net algorithms, or someone else builds them for you. We've seen that journey over time, kind of develop as a story almost. But you have to have the best source of data, and you already have to have it a little bit pre-filtered when you're operating with it.
Sure.
So many companies, they would just download Facebook Insights data. I don't think that's the way to go, because it's kind of doesn't feed the purpose and it's not cleaned up correctly.
Yeah, the social media data is so big. Basically, what kind of information eventually can dig out from that kind of data. It's very important.
Yeah, I mean, today it's just Social Baker's servers are thousands of machines that ping Facebook on a basis of 10 to 50,000 times per second, depending on the volume. Sure. That's a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Question in the back. We have probably time for one or two more.
Considering that organic posts are better than sponsored listings on Facebook, let's say, do you feel it's still worthwhile to do sponsored listings and pay for getting your video out there?
So, okay, so just let me clarify the statement I made. That was for publishers and media companies and content producers, yes? Not for brands. Brands cannot do organic anymore. Brands, organic is kind of dead because you don't have the content, you don't have the story that people would watch, so you have to promote. For the publishers out there, I recommend using sponsored as a subset, certain mix. Number one, to try. And I've literally seen local publications put $15 on a post to try what it does every 10, 20 posts. I don't recommend using it too frequently because we've seen what it can do. I recommend, again, playing with the data around it, trying it 1 week, not doing it the other week, comparing results. It's kind of trial and error that you have to understand. But of course, if you have like sponsored content from other people and then you promote it, or that partner promotes it, that's pretty cool way of doing it. We've even seen brands that, for example, if your story would mention a brand, they would share it on their page or a community and promote it from there. So you'd kind of get, in your data, it would show as shared traffic or organic traffic, because Facebook sums those two, but it's actually paid traffic of someone else. So you have to be kind of careful with classifying organic entirely, but because it's not always organic and it can be cheated to an extent, but that would require a whole deep 60 minutes dive in on just hacking organic reach and things like that. But again, newsfeed is a science, and really understanding all of the data surrounding it is absolutely critical.
Thank you.
One last question over there.
Hi, my name is Gushi. You mentioned the team is very critical. So you also mentioned the newsfeed. That is one of the key persons. How would a company go about finding the talent, because you said there are a lot of, so that's going to be, you know, just how, where, which school, what, you know, I'm just,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, this is the question. How to find the right people. Like, I'm almost at the point, like, shouldn't we build as a company our own school and just like take these people through a month, 2 month, 3 month intensive care training and like send them back to the companies? We do that actually for companies. So we have one of the largest training teams in the world, but they would train you for 1 or 2 weeks, which actually is better than nothing. But I think substantially more is required. But it's more the profile of person that you're looking for. You're looking at a profile of person with a fully flexible mind, super agile thinking in a way that he can change argumentative thinking from 1 minute to the other by the set of new data and new facts that he's learned. Definitely not stubborn, definitely someone super open-minded, with very little ego around like, this is my way. No, it's the data is the way. And this is the number one question that I actually get from most managers. It's like, help me find that person that you're talking about. And I placed most of the people that I know in the regions already at some of my friends' businesses, and it's very hard to find. I think you'll end up having to train out these people, send them to the right places, send them to the right events, send them to the right trainings, and that fruit will hopefully pay off for you. And in the interim, you'll probably have to hire a certain data agency or somebody to supplement that, because if you're not doing that from now, your competitors will, and they'll start completely tearing you apart. And I think that's the message of the story, is you want to be better than them. And in the meanwhile, you can hack that by watching your competitors' strategies, if they work out, and then just copying some of the good ones. So that's a hack, but that doesn't make you a leader. That makes you a follower of the other strategies. Works for some time and work for many others, but I think you really want to be that leader. And if not, the cost-effective way of doing it is copying. Thank you very much.